April 3, 2016. Coldwater County Sheriff's Office. Officer, Deputy Marshal Elliot Wick. Reporting Officer, Detective Nathan Cole, MSPD, Violent Crimes. The call came in at 2:17 a.m. Local dispatch reported a series of 911 hang-ups originating from the same location, an unincorporated stretch of farmland east of Coldwater Hollow. Caller ID traced it to a landline registered to one Evelyn Maddox, age 72, widowed. No prior incidents. When we arrived at the Maddox residence, a collapsing white farmhouse half hidden behind a line of black pines, the front door was ajar. No lights, no sound, just the flickering hum of a disconnected dial tone coming from the kitchen wall phone, swinging gently on its cord. Inside, the house smelled of soil and mold. Dust choked every surface. On the kitchen table, a Bible opened to Revelation 6. One word was underlined in pencil: pale. No sign of Evelyn. No blood. No struggle. Just one oddity. Her old rotary phone, which had no redial function, showed fingerprints smeared in circles around the dial. It looked like someone had tried to make the same call over and over with shaking hands. We searched the rest of the house. Upstairs, her bedroom was untouched, but the guest room had been gutted. Walls stripped to studs. Mattress removed. Dozens of wind chimes dangled from the ceiling, made from bones, chicken, raccoon, maybe deer, all strung with fishing line. They rattled even though there was no breeze. At 3:06 a.m., Wick and I heard a sound from the barn. A long metallic groan. We approached with flashlights. The barn doors opened on their own before we touched them. Inside, dirt floor. Hay scattered. Nothing unusual until we saw the far wall. Black symbols carved deep into the wood. Spirals, antlers, crooked stick figures. In the center of the floor, a perfectly circular patch of dry earth. No weeds. No prints. No disturbance. Just bone dry and strangely warm. We called in backup. By sunrise, a perimeter was set. Evelyn Maddox was filed as missing. That was the last normal day of the case. April 4th, 2016. Recovered item number 12, cassette tape, labeled "Don't Listen After Dark." Source, Maddox residence, kitchen drawer. I took the tape back to the motel and played it using a portable deck. The first 10 minutes were silence, then faint static. At minute 11, a voice, female, quivering. It started with the trees. They moved when I wasn't looking. I swear they moved. The voice was Evelyn Maddox. Calm at first, but deteriorating as the recording went on. There's something in the roots. Beneath the barn. I heard it whispering last week. Sounded like my husband, but he's been dead 12 years. He said he was cold. Asked me to come outside. Minute 15, sudden high-frequency spike. Almost like a scream, but mechanical. It cut through the audio like a drill. I think it's wearing him. His face. But the eyes aren't right. They're too clean. Too new. Silence returned. Then something that didn't sound like her. Lower pitch. Male, distorted. Let the hollow take you. Let the hollow make you whole. The tape ended with the clattering of wind chimes. I rewound and listened again. The second time through, I heard something layered beneath the surface. Slower, reversed. I digitized the file and reversed the audio. The reversed message: "We see you, Nathan." I hadn't said my name on any recording. I unplugged the tape deck. The motel lights flickered. Just once. April 5th, 2016. Interviewee, Jeremiah Red Cobb, age 83, lifelong Coldwater resident. Location, Cobb residence, near Hollow Line Road. Red sat on his porch, chewing tobacco, staring at the tree line like it owed him something. I asked him about the Maddox farm. "You're not the first to come pokin'," he said. "But most don't come back." He told me that back in the 1930s, a preacher's daughter vanished in those woods. They found her shoes on the barn roof. Just the shoes. No ladder. No prints. They used to say the land out there was thin, he said. Like the crust of a pie that ain't done cooking. You step wrong, you fall through. I asked what that meant. Red tapped the side of his head. "The hollow's hungry. It don't eat like we do. It eats you slow. Through your memories. Through your name." He warned me not to speak my full name out loud after sundown. Said it carries too far out here. Before I left, I asked why Evelyn Maddox would have carved symbols in her barn. He spat. "Ain't her that carved 'em. It's them that live under." I asked who. He didn't answer. Just went inside and locked the door. April 6th, 2016. Field notes, personal observation. Location, forested perimeter near Holow Line Road, west of Maddox property. I followed the edge of the tree line just after dawn. The air was still. Dead leaves coated the ground, yet none crunched underfoot. It was like walking on sponge. About half a mile in, I found a narrow creek, black with silt. No current, no sound. It looked like it hadn't moved in years. On the opposite bank, a stack of small stones, 7 high, balanced with impossible precision. The base rock had a symbol scratched into it, identical to one in the Maddox barn. A twisted, mirrored Y with hooks at the ends. I photographed it. As I stood, I heard a splash behind me. I turned. No one there. But the stones had fallen. I hadn't touched them. When I reviewed the photos that night, the first 3 were fine. But the fourth, taken seconds later, was black. Not blurry, not corrupted, just black. And in the center, something faint. A shape. Humanoid. Tall. Barely distinguishable. As if it had been standing between me and the lens. I hadn't seen anything there. April 7th, 2016. Internal memo, Mississippi State Police. From Detective Nathan Cole to Sergeant Dana Hollis. Sergeant Hollis, I am formally requesting additional resources for the investigation into Coldwater Holow. 3 reasons. Evelyn Maddox remains missing with no leads, no evidence of abduction, and no known psychiatric history. Multiple symbols found at the Maddox site match those from 2 unsolved rural cases, Claiborne County, 1988, and Rankin County, 1995. In both instances, the victims vanished, and ritual markings were discovered. Audio evidence retrieved from the scene contains intelligible speech referencing my name, without provocation or cause. Something is wrong here. This case is not a standard missing person. There is an environmental component, possibly occult presence, and I have growing concerns about psychological exposure risks. I've begun experiencing severe headaches and recurring dreams. I'll be submitting for a cognitive health review next week if symptoms persist. In the meantime, I'm continuing the investigation solo. Regards, Detective Cole. April 8th, 2016. Subject, Deputy Marshal Elliot Wick. Status, missing. Filed by Detective Nathan Cole. Deputy Wick volunteered to stay overnight at the Maddox property to monitor the site. He set up trail cams and kept in radio contact until 2:41 a.m. At that time, he reported hearing noises beneath the floorboards of the barn, scraping, muttering. He described it as like metal on teeth. His last words over the radio were, "It's not under the floor. It's inside the wood." Then silence. At 5:07 a.m., I arrived with 2 officers. Wick's cruiser was parked on the edge of the property. Lights off. Door open. Radio hissing static. His sidearm was still holstered. Inside the barn, the carved wall was different. New symbols added. Fresh gouges. No signs of Wick, but his flashlight was found buried 3 inches deep in the dry earth circle. Still on. Beam pointed straight down. One of the officers, Harold Denby, stared too long at the carvings. He collapsed 30 minutes later with a seizure. At the hospital, he kept repeating one phrase. "They were the ones who stay." He hasn't spoken since. April 9th, 2016. Subject, sub-barn excavation, unofficial. Conducted by Detective Cole, solo entry, for to 6 o'clock HRS. Unable to sleep. Kept hearing the voice from the tape. "Let the Holow make you whole." Decided to go back to the barn alone. I dug into the dry circle where Wick's flashlight was found. Soil crumbled like ash. After an hour, I uncovered a hatch, rusted, oak-lined, reinforced with iron bolts. No hinges, just a symbol scorched into the wood. The hooked Y again, this time ringed with teeth. I opened it. Beneath, a narrow tunnel descending at an unnatural angle, walls lined with more carvings. Too smooth to be human-made. No nails, no seams, just continuous, curving black timber. I descended 5 steps. Heard whispering. My own voice. Turned back. My hands were shaking too hard to close the hatch properly. It wouldn't seal. Back at the motel, I checked my voicemail. One new message. A whisper. My voice again. "You're not back yet." April 10th, 2016. Subject, Maddox grave site. Found by Detective Nathan Cole and forensic team. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following me, an oppressive weight, like the ground itself had been hollowed out beneath my feet. I couldn't trust my own eyes. On the morning of April 10th, I set out again with the intention to retrace Evelyn Maddox's steps, and I followed the path she would have taken toward the creek. What I found was unexpected. About 2 miles east of the farm, near the tree line, a shallow grave had been dug. At first, it appeared to be an animal burial, shredded cloth, bone fragments, and matted fur, but further examination revealed human remains. The corpse was badly decomposed, but it was clear the body had been dragged from somewhere, likely the farm. The remains had been arranged in a ritualistic pattern, with the body positioned in the center of a large concentric circle of stones, identical to the ones by the creek. At the foot of the grave was a weathered journal, half buried. I picked it up, hands trembling. The last entry, dated just days before Evelyn Maddox disappeared, read, "It's not just my husband's face. They're wearing his skin. They're wearing it all." I burned the journal immediately after I read the note. The air around me smelled of rot and something foul, like burnt flesh. It was the only thing I could think to do. April 12th, 2016. Subject, Deputy Wick, return, condition, unknown. Filed by Detective Nathan Cole. The morning of April 12th, Deputy Wick returned to the station, disoriented and covered in a layer of dark grime. His uniform was shredded. His hands were raw, fingers split open as though he had been clawing at something. When I confronted him, he didn't recognize me. His eyes were wide and unfocused. He muttered over and over, "You have to let it in. It's already inside." He looked at me as though seeing something behind me, something I couldn't perceive. His hands shook as he reached out, touching my face with cold, cracked fingertips. I tried to leave. It pulled me back. I'm still inside. I tried to get him to explain. He wouldn't. The last words he spoke before they sedated him were, "It's all just a dream, a cycle, and we're all part of it now." Wick is currently in a psychiatric facility under heavy observation. He hasn't spoken since. April 14th, 2016. Subject, final report. Filed by Detective Nathan Cole. I don't know how to end this report. Every lead has turned into a dead end. I've gone over the files. I've scoured the scene. The pieces don't fit, but I know this much. Coldwater Holow is a place that eats the soul. Wick was right about one thing. It's all a cycle. I thought I could escape. I thought I could leave it behind. But as I sit here, writing these final words, I hear that familiar whisper again. It's louder now. Closer. You can't leave. You are here. I don't know if I'll make it out of here. Maybe I'm already gone, and this is just the dream. Case file 72-13B. Closed. Status, unsolved. Recommendation, site sealed. Do not engage. Case file 44-27C, the Juneau logging site. Alaska, 2019. Internal report / not for public release. Filed by Detective Marshall Keegan, Juneau PD. Compiled November 4th, 2019. Case status, unresolved / classified. Part 1, initial discovery. On September 17th, 2019, a distress call came through the Juneau Police Department dispatch line from a satellite phone registered to Alton Dyer, foreman of the Northridge Logging Company. The call was garbled, punctuated by static and intermittent screams in the background. Dyer's voice, panicked and hoarse, kept repeating a single phrase. "They're under the floor. They were never human." The signal cut out after 48 seconds. Northridge's current operation was deep in the Tongass National Forest, approximately 62 miles northwest of Juneau, accessible only by chopper or a 6-hour ATV route. The company had been harvesting old-growth Sitka spruce under a controversial state lease, despite pushback from local conservationists. 3 days prior to the call, contact with the logging team had been lost. Initially attributed to weather interference, it wasn't until Dyer's emergency call that the situation was treated as urgent. Juneau PD, in coordination with Alaska State Troopers and a SAR, Search and Rescue Unit, dispatched a team via helicopter on the morning of September 18th. I was embedded in the second chopper, tasked with documentation and possible criminal investigation support. What we found at the site did not match any standard protocol. Part 2, the logging camp. The camp was completely abandoned. 23 men and women had been stationed there. We found no bodies, no signs of evacuation. Only scattered tools, a few still-running generators, and partially butchered logs stacked near the mill structure. The only indication of panic was in the mess hall: overturned tables, scattered food trays, and a clawed indentation in the linoleum floor about 2 feet wide. It wasn't a cut or scrape. It looked like the flooring had melted inward in a circular pattern. On one of the cafeteria walls, someone had scratched into the drywall with what looked like the blade of a bone saw. Dig too deep, and it opens back up. We noted signs of recent excavation near the southeast ridge of the site, a sinkhole roughly 20 feet across and 30 feet deep, with makeshift timber scaffolding partially collapsed into the void. No equipment was nearby, only a snapped winch cable and a single logger's helmet resting upright on the edge. When we descended into the pit, we encountered something unexpected, not just soil and rock, but ancient, worked stone. It looked like a vault, partially exposed and cracked open, about 12 feet down. Its surface bore deep spiral carvings that no one on site could identify. That night, we camped in shifts. By morning, our tech specialist, Officer Lindsay Wu, was gone. Part 3, the recordings. We found her helmet near the edge of the excavation, cam light still blinking. Inside was a micro SD card, presumably from her body cam. The footage was corrupted, skipping every few seconds, but we recovered enough to piece together a rough timeline. At 2:14 a.m., Wu is seen investigating strange noises, rhythmic thudding from beneath the floor of her tent. She exits, flashlight panning, and walks toward the excavation. Around the 3-minute mark, her light captures movement, something pale and human-sized crawling upward from the exposed vault, limbs wrong, joints bending backward. She breathes heavily, retreats, and whispers, "It's not dead. It was never dead." Then the video cuts. No trace of Officer Wu was ever recovered. No signs of struggle. No blood. Part 4, the Black Ledger. After Officer Wu's disappearance, we pulled the team back from the pit. Trooper Hammond radioed for an extraction chopper, but the signal kept bouncing, giving us only static in return. We were stuck for another night. That evening, I examined the foreman's cabin more thoroughly. In the bottom drawer of Alton Dyer's desk, behind a loose panel, I found a leather-bound notebook, old, water-damaged, and brittle. It wasn't part of any official record. Inside were pages of sketches, notes, and unsettling entries, some dated months before the team even broke ground. The first pages detailed seismic readings taken by Northage's private geologist. They weren't normal for the area. The ground beneath the site, according to his notes, wasn't behaving like normal bedrock. It resonated, especially at night, a low-frequency pulse, like a heartbeat, he wrote. On page 22, Dyer's handwriting changed. Messier scrawled. He described dreams. "The stairs go down forever. Something is singing. It sounds like me." Then a list of names. All 23 workers, next to 11 of them. Taken. One entry, circled 3 times in red ink. They live in the ground. Always have. The trees fed on them. We cut too deep. Now they want out. Part 5, the returners. On the 3rd night, we lost another, Trooper Hammond. We found his rifle near the showers, barrel twisted like soft wax. No tracks. No blood. Just a wide patch of dirt, freshly turned, still warm, like something had dug up from underneath. That morning, the first chopper finally arrived. But when we rushed to the landing zone, something was already waiting at the tree lane. From a distance, it looked like Hammond, uniform and all. But his face, there was something wrong. It wasn't moving naturally. He was smiling too wide, his eyes bulging, unblinking. He didn't speak. He just stood there, swaying slightly, like a puppet held by invisible strings. Officer Mallory took a step toward him, calling his name. That's when he opened his mouth. Not to speak, to scream. Not sound, wind. A high-pitched rush, like pressure escaping from a vacuum. Every tree within 30 feet bowed away from him. And then he vanished. Gone. Just like smoke caught in a gust. We didn't go near the tree line after that. Part 6, the dig site breach. With half the team missing and no chance of staying another night, we decided to collapse the excavation and leave. Explosives were rigged at the edge of the pit. I was overseeing the final check when I noticed something in the dirt near the scaffolding, a trail of fingerprints, deep and erratic, clawing outward from the stone vault. And at the center of the spiral-carved surface was a new crack. Thin, fresh, bleeding black fluid that smelled like rust and rotting flowers. The moment the charges went off, the forest screamed. Not figuratively, the sound echoed like a dying animal miles wide, a wet, rattling shriek that shook the air. Birds dropped mid-flight. My nose bled. Officer Mallory collapsed and seized. When it ended, the pit was sealed. The vault, buried again. But something felt unfinished. The ground still hummed. Part 7, the audio fragment. A week after our return, an unmarked envelope arrived at the station. No return address. Inside, a flash drive containing a single audio file, time-stamped September 20th, the morning after the vault was buried. The recording lasts exactly 3 minutes. At first, it's just ambient forest noise, then footsteps, then breathing, and then a voice. You buried the door, not the house. Rustling. Another voice, whispering in the background, my own. A recording of me from the dig site, saying words I never said. Then static. Then 37 seconds of silence, followed by tapping, soft, rhythmic, like knuckles on wood. When the audio ends, the file deletes itself. Part 8, closure, classified. Northridge Logging ceased operations. The site was sealed off under the guise of environmental protection. All official records list the incident as a workplace accident during a seismic event. The families were paid off, but I still dream of the pit, of the vault that breathes, of something still trapped, just barely, waiting under the moss and earth. They weren't spirits, not demons. They were older, they had roots, and we woke them up. Filed under restricted access. Do not distribute. Pending further investigation/federal oversight. Case File 47-09A, the Bell Ridge Sinkhole. Filed by Special Agent Neil Morgan, FBI, internal use only. Location, Bell Ridge, Virginia, June 2019. Bell Ridge was barely on the map. One gas station, a church with a rusted bell tower, and a diner that hadn't changed its menu since 1962. When I drove in that morning, the sky was the color of bruised steel, clouds hanging low like wet wool over the Appalachian foothills. Sheriff Ken Harwood met me outside his office. He was a stout, broad man with deep lines etched under his eyes. He didn't shake my hand. He just gestured to the folder in my hand and said, "You sure you're ready for that hole, Agent Morgan?" We spent the first hour going over the timeline. March 3rd, Paula Drayton, 41, schoolteacher. Last seen walking her dog near the West Treeline. Dog came back alone, barking nonstop. March 17th, Craig Heller, 55, retired miner. Obsessively exploring old Appalachian cave systems. Wife said he was drawn to that place. April 10th, Marcus Yates, 28, freelance geologist. Found his journal, last entry, subsurface anomaly detected. Infrasound spikes. May 2nd, Ellie Cook, 16, disappeared during a bonfire party near the forest. Friends thought she'd just gone home. May 29th, Deputy Mia Sanders, on duty, called in a report at 3:12 a.m. Never heard from again. 6 people, 1 forest. You're going to want to talk to Annie Yates, the sheriff said. Marcus's sister. She's the only one still poking around that place. Says the forest isn't just alive, it's listening. Locals call it the mouth. Technically, it's a collapsed limestone cavity, a wide, shallow depression about 50 yards across, ringed with trees that leaned inward like they were being sucked into the earth. I visited it with Deputy Keller, the only one willing to go near it. Don't go too close, he warned. Sometimes the ground shifts, like something's crawling under there. It looked dead quiet, but my ears rang with an odd pressure, like cabin pressure dropping on a plane. No wind, no birds, just that unsettling hum, so low it wasn't even audible. It vibrated your spine. There were signs of recent entry. A broken branch, a red ribbon tied to a root. I squatted down near the edge. The soil was warm. That night, back at the motel, I played the audio file from Deputy Sanders' last transmission. I ran it through an audio filter, tried to clean it up. At the 038 mark, her voice trembled. There's a light. It's below. It's opening. God, breathing down here. Then something else, barely above the threshold of human hearing. A second voice, not hers. Low, clicking consonants. A dry whisper like crumbling leaves. I enhanced the waveform. It said, "Turn around." Annie Yates met me at her brother's old camper near the tree line. She was gaunt, twitchy, sleepless. Her walls were covered in maps, seismic charts, infrasound graphs. A dozen voice recorders littered the floor. They thought he was crazy, she said. But he was right. There's something under Bell Ridge. Something old. She showed me Marcus's journal. The last page was covered in frantic sketches, concentric circles, spiraling down into a central void. In the margins, one phrase repeated over and over. It listens through the roots. She'd been planting seismic probes near the sinkhole and claimed to have captured underground movement patterns that mimicked a heartbeat. It's alive, she whispered, and it's hungry. It doesn't eat people. It keeps them. For what? I don't know. She played me a clip from one of her recorders, captured just days ago. Faint at first, then a sudden, piercing scream that cut off as if something had closed over it. The voice was unmistakable. It was Deputy Sanders. Against orders, I returned to the sinkhole alone on June 24th at 2:48 a.m., carrying a thermal drone and a body cam. The humming was louder now. A soft quake rolled underfoot every 30 seconds. Like breathing, the drone registered a heat signature 30 feet underground. Human-sized. Moving. Then the ground cracked. I fell 6 feet into a shallow tunnel of pulsing root systems. It was hot, wet. The walls seemed to move, not just from insects, but like muscle. I heard faint voices echoing from the dark ahead, distorted, metallic, layered, like multiple people talking at once, but not in sync. Crying, pleading, and beneath it all, that voice. Dry, ancient, whispering from the dirt itself. Deeper. I followed the tunnel. It widened into a chamber, a massive underground pocket lined with root-like tendrils that pulsed with a dull red glow. And there, embedded in the walls, were them. Bodies. Still alive. Eyes wide open. Mouths moving, soundlessly. Skins pale and stretched like wax. They weren't decaying. They were fused to the root walls. Trapped. Preserved. I saw Paula Drayton, Craig Heller, Ellie Cook, Marcus, and at the far end, suspended halfway in the earth, was Deputy Sanders. Her eyes locked onto mine. She tried to scream. Then the walls convulsed. A groaning, shifting sound like an ancient door being opened below me. The floor dropped. It was not a creature. It was the land itself. A buried entity, perhaps once organic, now fused with stone and tree and time. A thing that had slept beneath Appalachia for centuries. Worshipped by forgotten tribes. Abandoned, but not dead. I saw its eye. Not a literal eye, but a vast, circular membrane pulsing at the chamber's core. It saw me. It knew me. And in that instant I felt every root, every stone, every grain of soil press against my skin. It offered me a choice. Stay. My chest tightened. I saw flashes of my memories being peeled away. My childhood. My wife. My name. I dropped to my knees, gripping the earth. I was about to forget everything. I screamed, jammed a flare into the root wall, and the chamber erupted in steam and shrieking. Sealed. They found me 13 hours later wandering near the tree line, barefoot, eyes bloodshot, whispering nonsense. I was airlifted to Walter Reed and held for psychiatric evaluation. Everything from the sinkhole collapsed 2 days later in a massive subsidence event. Officially, a natural sinkhole disaster. No bodies recovered. No media coverage allowed. But I know what I saw. I still hear it sometimes. At night. A low, wet breathing through the floorboards. And in the silence, a voice. You left them. But we remember you.